This is way more people than I thought would be here. I'm not even kidding. Originally, they scheduled me at 4 o'clock, and that's the Super Bowl. So I'm not competing with the Super Bowl anymore. I'm Dwayne. I work as an agency and community success manager at Pantheon. I'll talk about them in a second. But I've been working in sales and marketing for, well, a while now. Learned everything through the School of Hard Knocks and from managers yelling at me. So what I'm going to share today is based on that world of experience, not so much my dev experience. Outside of doing stuff like this in tech, I love karaoke. We didn't do any this time around at this event, but if you ever see me at another event, I'll go to karaoke with you. I love doing improv. There's an awesome improv scene in this town as well. But I love Twitter. Absolutely adore Twitter. I'm MC Dwayne out there. I like my Twitter handle so much. I made my website, mcdwayne.com. All the slides for this talk, they're not up there yet because I didn't finish them until 10 minutes ago. But as soon as this talk's over, I will put them up here, I promise. And you can get those slides from there. I have a quick request related to Twitter, actually. I have this crazy idea for a project in 2018 since I do a lot of talks. I would like to get a talk of me in front of the slide, and then I'll take that picture in the next talk and get a picture in front of that talk and keep staggering. So if somebody could take this picture for me, that would be awesome. You don't have to put it on Twitter if you don't want, but just send me the picture. It's just me in front of this picture. I think it's funny. As long as I think it's funny, it's worth doing the joke. Exactly. I've only ever presented in exactly this shirt and exactly this shirt. And
Can we Photoshop it first?
please. All right, quickly, we have a booth up there. If you want to talk about Pantheon, awesome world-class hosting and amazing development tools for teams of any size, we're happy to talk to you about that. But I'm curious to who is in the room. I mean, there's not that many of you. We could do like full introductions. Yeah, you're here. Good. Who here considers himself a developer? And who here considers himself a designer? And who here considers themselves a business owner? And who here needs a website? Hey, you do need websites. There's developers and designers in the room. They can talk to you. Pay attention, people. Forgot. I had this written down. Who's ever fired a client or come really close to firing a client? Like they've been like, I want these people gone. Who has ever inherited work? And you look at it, you're like, what the heck's going on with this? My goodness, what were they even trying to do with this site? That's what I want to talk to you today about, is drilling into that scenario. Like, why do we end up in a place where we want to fire clients? And why clients want to fire developers? And why the old site looks so terrible? And I like pictures of myself, obviously. I was given a talk about the discovery process, because that's one of the things that sales has taught me just time and time again, is follow a process, follow a process, follow a process. And I was talking about that process, and in the middle of the talk, somebody asked a question, and part of their question was, well, the point of a website is to unite a company under one banner. And then asked me a question, and I'm like, whoa, let's back up. I disagree. Like, a website does what a website does, because nobody wants a website. They want the results of that website. And half the room did this, and the other half of the room did this. And I said, there's got to be a conversation in the middle of that we got to come to some kind of agreement on why the world is like that. But before we get to that, I know we just ate lunch. Originally, this was going to work out better because it's the end of the day and more people would be hungry. But who wants a sandwich? Any here want a sandwich? All right, let me get the sandwich out. Again, should have prepped better for this. That's all right. Who wanted a sandwich? Who wanted one? You did. Okay. Go on. All right. Meanwhile, let everybody. Here's your sandwich. I won't be away from the mic for a second.
You got any mustards?
There's mustard in there. It's on lettuce. There's a lot of lettuce. Green cheese there. Now I gotta ask though, is this a satisfactory sandwich to you?
It's not a rubber biscuit.
does it meet the expectation of what you thought when I said the word sandwich?
Probably not.
No. But hey, you know what? I'm really proud of this work. So probably because of the vegan cheese. Most people don't like vegan cheese. Let's get rid of this. And now does it meet your expectations? Does this meet the goal you had for a sandwich?
Well, no. Got a lot of lettuce.
There's too much lettuce. We take the lettuce out. Now does it meet your definition of sandwich?
Is this red or yellow on it?
Specified that. Anyway, you get my point. You can keep the sandwich, sir. Thank you very much for participating.
No, thank you.
Thank you for sharing the sandwich. For those of you playing along at home, I gave him a stack of papers that had sandwich ingredients and asked if he was happy with that sandwich. And the answer is no, that's insane. Because I said sandwich and gave you something that technically meets the Wikipedia definition between bread, which said bread on those outside pages, but then we started swapping things around. I started swapping things around and saying, oh, no, this has got to be what you wanted. No, this has got to be what you wanted. Without ever stepping back and saying, well, what did you actually want? And that's a dumb object lesson to get to this. This is in any business, not just web development, anything where someone's paid us to do a thing and we do a thing. You have to have expectations and results line up exactly. Because if they don't, things get bad. Things get really bad. If you describe to me, I want a red monster with googly eyes made out of cake. Well, technically the one on the right does that. But in all reality, this just makes people angry. It's like, that's not at all what I wanted. And irate people are terrible to deal with because they're irate and they're not using logic anymore. It's all an emotional decision after that. But it has some longer term consequences than just they're irate at that time. This is an actual quote from a CMO friend of mine where I was talking about this talk in Meta like months ago. And he said this, developers are not taking I didn't understood what he meant by fiduciary responsibilities. He's like, we paid this company X number of dollars and the results were just terrible. Like we thought they would get much better results. And it's up to them to figure out how to make this good, how to get to our goals. I'm like, did you ever tell them what you wanted to do? Did you ever get there? And he's like, well, that's not the point. We paid them. They should have figured that out. Because I think what he thought, what the company he was working with, what a lot of developers, especially freelancers, think that they're selling is this. And what the person on the other end thinks they're buying is this, which is a different set of skills combined together. And probably most people in the room know this already. This is for those of you who don't. This all leaves us in the industry with a kind of a bad reputation that, oh, I don't know if I want to work with another web developer. I'll just go use Squarespace or Wix because last time I worked with it, it just didn't have good results. So why would I bother? And you have this whole reputation in the space. One of the mentors I talked to about this talk said it's an endemic problem to the industry. I don't know if I'd go that far, but this guy is a CMO in Silicon Valley who hangs out with other CMOs in Silicon Valley. And guess who he's talking about got terrible results on a project? The shop he hired. Guess who's not getting hired by his friends? That shop. So how do we fix this? How do we go about fixing the problem? I see everything as the nail that can be fixed with the golden hammer of process, because that was drilled into me. But I think before we get to that process, it's important to hit this point here. We have to step back and ask, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we trying to accomplish in the big picture? So if it's just delivering beautiful PHP that works very well with JavaScript, that's a very different thing than I'm designing a workflow system so a content editor can reach thousands of people. You can accomplish that with the first part I talked about, but the goal isn't for the end user to have a beautiful PHP and JavaScript working together. It's to reach the thousands of people. This is one of my favorite quotes from WooConf last year that really drills into this. Well, you can say we're not designing a blank, but a blank. You can start playing that game. But once we have that idea in head, like, okay, we got to step back and really think about what we're doing here. How do we talk about what we're doing? And if you've ever seen me speak before, you've probably seen the slide. I use the slide a lot. Who here has ever seen a sales or project funnel like this before in their life? Hopefully everybody. If not, I will run through it really quick. Let's run through it real quick. So if you can qualify all the people in the world into various buckets, big buckets. Leads, if I got emails addressed from everyone in this room, you would be all my leads. If I got email addresses from everyone in the world, they'd be all my leads. And then go follow up with them. And then I have to qualify them and see if I can work with them and they need anything I'm selling. I'll get back to qualify, like what that, drill into that a bit more. But if I find I can work with them, then we go through a process to see what they specifically need and how I can actually help them. And that's called discovery. We'll take those learnings, turn that into documents that they sign. We go through a procurement process, which is always fun. End up with delivering something, and then go to maintenance and hopefully funnel them back through the top, or cycle them back through the top of that funnel so they can become qualified leads again, and we can sell them more. One of my favorite sales mentors ever, MJ Hoffman, out of Boston, he said, your sales process really needs to be the marriage of art and science. In the science part, it needs to be a crank. It needs to be the same thing over and over again. Like, why do equations work? Because algebraic equations are the same thing over and over again. That's why machines are awesome at them. Just plug in the variables and away you go. The art part, that's not what we're talking about today. How to be personable, those are the being human tracks here, how to listen, how to tell stories. There's a ton of great information. This has been a great camp for that. To watch the recordings, and there's a ton of great information about that, being personable. I'm talking about the science part. How do we build that crank? I think the crank of this really comes in the front. The art of it definitely comes in the proposal. Like, how do we get through their procurement system? There's science to that too, but how do I qualify someone to know what I want them to do? Well, as a sales guy, this is what I learned. BANT. Budget, authority, need, time frame. Very simple to spit out. There's also a couple other well-known checklists out there. Scotsman is what I used when I went through Sandler technique training. He prefers Scotsman, which is solution. I can actually do a thing you need. Competition, only me. Something original to my work. How much time we got, what's the size of the thing. Money, authority, need. Mean, act. I'm not going to read it all to you. But there's one thing that's true between all of these. And that's why BANT is the standard across the industry. It's simple and it boils all of those points down. Budget, authority, need, time frame. If you are in sales, I guarantee you the first and foremost one you care about is budget. If there's no money, you move on. So then we start neglecting the other ones. We get happy ears as soon as we hear budget. What's your timeline? Oh, that's fungible. Or that's we can what's that? That's flexible. We can work with that. Okay. Authority. We can find out who needs to sign off on this. We can work with that. You have a budget after all. Like, somebody made that budget possible. And since you're talking to me, obviously you have a need, and we're done. No. Need is the one that gets neglected, and it's the most telling of all of them. Because how do you ask someone if they have a budget? Anybody?
How much is your budget?
Yeah, how much is your budget? That is a really, really easy question. Do you have any money to pay me for this? The answer is yes or no. Or I could go get that. Oh, you need to go get that. Who's got that authority? And they start chasing authority. But the need, like, why do you need this? How many people stop and ask, well, why do you want that? Why are you trying to buy this? As a sales guy, I would never ask that question. Like, why are you trying to buy this? Maybe later in discovery and procurement, that will come back up. We're talking about competition. But if we know it up front, it puts us in a much better position. So, I see the first parts of any discovery process and all of qualification as a machine. If it's not a machine, you're wasting time. You're going to start jumping around in process and start doing a discovery process with someone that's not qualified at all and just waste everyone's time. They're going to be mad. You're going to be mad. No one's going to have a good day. Now, not to say this is going to be perfect every time, but that's what the rest of this talk is really going to drill into, is how to think about building this machine from a needs first perspective. Because what's a need after all? Why do they need a thing? Not just because it's not a want. It's not they woke up today and said, I want to build a 28-page website. No, nobody does that. They have a goal in mind. There's something that they specifically want. And if we're smart about it, we'll use SMART goals. There's a bunch of acronym goal systems out there. SMART's just one of them. I will caveat all of this by saying, yeah, this is an opinion on all of these things from things I've observed in the industry over the years. SMART's one methodology, but there are plenty others. You can plug them in just the same. I like this one because it has the word specific in it. Specifically, what do you want to do? Because if they don't know that, you're done. They don't have a goal. They don't have a need. They might think they have a need and then go off, think about it, and come back, but they don't know. Attainable? That's for you to decide. Could you actually do that or not? That's why it's in qualify. Is it time bound? It's flexible. Your sales especially. Is it relevant? It's relevant if you have a budget, at least to me. Measurable. It seems a bit early to start talking about measurable goals. Except it's not, because you're going to have that conversation. And the sooner you figure out what they know and what they don't know, the better your discovery process is going to be. So if you can't measure something, it's impossible to improve upon it. There's some debate about this in certain fields, but historically this is true. If I know exactly what time of day I eat so many calories, and I know my weight gain or loss based on that, I can adjust that number and hopefully have some different results. If not, I'll see a doctor. In business, there's this wonderful, well-understood thing called KPIs. Now, I say well understood the same way that personal computers are well understood, or the same way that calculus is well understood. It's a concept that people know really, really well, and some people know the name of. But it's a little well enough known concept. It's like a sandwich. When I said sandwich, you all had an idea in your head of what a sandwich is. All the KPIs for that sandwich were wrong and failed. Well, how many of you ever asked first time you met someone and they said, I want to do a project, like, well, what's your KPIs? And get that blank look of horror back. That's scary to do. Maybe you don't do this on the first call. But the difference, day and night difference of, oh, I want to do a thing, I have no KPIs and I don't know what that word means, to, oh, I'm glad you asked. Here's our spreadsheet of marketing KPIs and we're really trying to figure out the web analytics to match with this. Can you help with that? Those are two completely different customers. Guess which one probably has money and budget that they can actually access in a real project they need in mind? The one that has the KPI mapped out. They don't have to work with you, but you'll know where they are very quickly. If they do have KPI, wow, jump into discovery immediately. If they don't, well, we'll come back to that in a second. But if they do, let's keep turning that crank. But before we crank any further, let's stop for a second, because we're about to have a very different conversation. If they have KPIs, well, we're going to jump straight to asking them what those are and start trying to figure out the math of it. But if they don't, realize you're no longer a developer in this situation. You are a business analyst consultant. And that's cool if you are one. Those people are awesome. Does anybody in the room consider themselves a business analyst? Awesome. Pay attention, because you'll want their services at some point. And they'll talk to you about how they became business analysts. But know that that is what you're doing. That if you're going to go in and take their money to do that service, know that that is what you're doing. Because at any point, that CMO before would have had the conversation in discovery or qualification, say, hey, we need to charge you a lot more to figure out your KPIs before he signed contract. Much different outcome. Probably would have fired him, but he wouldn't have been a jerk about it and wouldn't talk bad about them to this day. He'd be like, yeah, they thought we didn't have our stuff together, so we didn't pay them because they didn't do anything for us. Like, okay, that's fair. So, what are we measuring? This is a qualification question. if they have no idea what a KPI is, we can step back and say, hey, what are we even trying to measure here? If they don't have any clue, they don't have a project. My sister, bless her soul, she called me or sent me a wall text message out of the blue a few weeks ago. It's like, I need a website because I think I need a website. And there's this awesome website I saw, and it's going to help, I think. So I wrote her back, like, well, what are you trying to do? No idea. Send me this other website. It's like, great, another agency built this. You can go talk to them about what they did. Like, figure out what you're trying to measure and what you're trying to do. And she was really taken aback by that. And we had a whole exchange back and forth of explaining this. Like, what are you even trying to measure? Good news is, even though they might know that up front, not know that up front, they have that somewhere hidden in their brain. You ask the right questions, it pops out. But it greatly differs depending on how you're looking at the problem set. Because if you are going to set up KPIs for someone as purely a web developer, what are you going to care about? Anything else off this list that I didn't put up here? These are the first ones that jumped to my brain. When I think of web analytics, this is what I think of. However, a CMO list kind of looks like this. This is pulled from like 5 different websites of marketing KPIs that I slammed together into one list. Yeah, cost per lead. It's not on here. Maybe we can dig that out of Google Analytics. Maybe we can make that work, but traffic to lead ratio? What are we defining lead as? Sales has a completely different set of standards. Why marketing and sales have this crazy Chinese wall between them that they'll never ever understand each other is because these things don't map one-to-one to these things. And at the end of the day, sales only cares about one figure, and that's W. That's the W column, dollars through the door, the win. Everything else is just how to get there. But the business owner cares about all this other stuff. And some of it's marketing, some of it's sales, some of it's operations, some of it's inventory, some of it's stuff that way out of your purview that you have no insight into. The good news is that if we go with the data model approach, a data first approach to this problem set, we have this wonderful world of data and KPIs that we have access to as developers and Google Analytics and all of that wonderful stuff. And there is some kind of formula out there. Caveat here, I am not a data scientist, and the equations I'm about to show you are not real, and if you apply these to your business, I am not responsible. But are some variation of this basic idea. Let's take web metric A versus web metric B, divide it by C, and that's some marketing KPI. More or less. There's some formula you can come up with that marketing will agree, yeah, obviously that is showing this number. Obviously that is showing this number. Because at the end of the day, that's what the business owner's doing. He's looking at his KPIs from all of his teams. A good business owner of a profitable company would look at the KPIs across the whole team and like, oh, well, these are the actual goal KPIs. How do all those KPIs align with that KPI? Great. So let's speak the same language as the business owner, and like let's combine the other metrics we have to make our KPIs. But do you even want to do that? This is a whole world of data science you can go to school for. It's an emerging field. Really dry stuff. People that read books about lambda calculus and wonderful things like that put me to sleep. You don't have to. There's people that do that you can partner with. There's third parties you can go with. But be honest with yourself. Are you doing this? Are you sitting down to a project and saying, I'm going to help you do all this stuff? Can you actually do it? Do you want to do all of these things? Do you want to be everything to everyone? Or do you just want to dev? That's cool. It's up to you. You get to decide. It's your business. But how do you ask them about all the other things? Because I'm talking specifically about business analyst on this talk. Because I think that's the driver of what a website does ultimately, is it hits the goals that you can measure. What about content? How many people have ever worked on a project and they just expect you to create content for them? They just expect it. Yeah, nodding heads in the room, you don't have to raise your hands. Project management's one of my favorite ones to talk about. But hey, qualification. This is before discovery. This is the first hour you've ever talked to this person in your life. Hey, what's your plan around content strategy? If you ever want someone to go away and never come back and talk to you about a website project, ask them this very bluntly as the first question out of your mouth. I have scared so many of my friends away who have asked me to build them websites. It's like, what's your content strategy? And I explain what a content strategy is, and they're like, I have no idea. Let me go think about that. And they don't get a website. Then they update their LinkedIn, and they're happy with that. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted a landing page you could contact them through, that they could brag on and blog on. Guess what? There's a platform for that. What are you going to do for design services? Maybe that you sell them. But are you going to sell that same bucket of time for the exact same rate as a designer, as an advanced PHP developer? That's not on a 1-to-1 ratio. That's not apples to apples. If you have a team and you're managing a team of people, well, do you pay your designer the exact same thing you pay your PHP engineer? Maybe you do. I don't know. It's your business. Maybe they have someone in-house that already is a designer. It has all of this laid out. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Like, oh yeah, here's all the designs we want to use and all the content we have. Can you just make it work together? Has anyone ever got that project? No, that's pie in the sky. Nobody does that. How are we going to handle project management? What are you going to do about project management in this? Do you expect me to run this project management and chase your people for content and tell your team my deadlines and make sure I'm communicating that? Wow, there's only so many hours in the day. And I'm trying to get to delivery as much as can because delivery is paid dollars to the door. So to go through a discovery process where this is days and days and days of calls where we figure out a project management strategy, oh, we should pay me for that if I'm figuring it out. Because that's a whole thing unto itself. Or are you going to adopt into your current project strategy that you have a project manager who's really good at this stuff, who's just going to work with me? We do 2 check-in calls a week. I show you the results and everybody's happy. Much different conversation, much different thing. Ultimately, it's up to you. I can't tell you what's right or wrong in any of this stuff. But given all of the conversations I've had with business owners and all of the conversations I've had with agencies out there about their frustrations, it seems that miscommunication between here's what they think they bought and here's what they bought not lining up comes from a little bit of, not self-delusion, that's too strong of a word, a little bit of not understanding what you were even offering and what they thought you were. So we have to align those goals. And it's cool if you just want to do this. This is developer, and I Googled developer, and this is one of the image searches from Google. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But remember, when you're doing that specifically to hit a goal. You're doing that to hit a KPI. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants a website. They want that website gives them. Nike doesn't want a website. Nike wants a sales mechanism so people will get excited and buy their shoes. They also want a website that tracks inventory. They also want a website that does internal database credential sharing for a certain team. That's probably a bad idea for a website, but they still want that. I don't know why. But the point is, Nike has 3,000 plus properties, and they all do something very specific to what they want to do. So does Sony, so does Cisco, so do they all. It was the easiest way to tell you that that's what I got for slides. So I didn't intend this to be an hour talk where I'm lecturing to you. I might not have stressed it well enough at the beginning, but this is an ongoing conversation I have seen between the people that have been nodding their heads and people that are staring at me blankly like, what on earth are you talking about here? So that's what I'd like to make this for the rest of the time we got. We got 45 minutes scheduled in this room together. Total is about 15 minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions, but if you have any thoughts or insights to how your company has fought off the beast of mismatched expectations, I would love to hear those notes. Anything that you have to add to what was presented here, how you're measuring KPIs, please, let's have that conversation.
I'd love to hear your strategies on how you can put on the brakes to get people to talk more about that discovery process, because the client, once you've talked money and stuff, they're all ready to go, and you're all ready to go.
Yep. Let me jump back up to that slide. It comes back to a project funnel. This isn't just a vague idea out in space that we can map things to later. This is a machine. You don't get to be a qualified lead until we go through a qualify step. If you take the money, you are in delivery, and how you fix delivery without a proper scope, I don't know how to fix scope creep like that. To say, here's what we can do. Agile is a way to start addressing that, but it's not a total solution in and of itself. That, hey, we're going to deliver these incremental chunks, and we'll agree on what those chunks are. But to get to that point of you have started working, and things will, of course, change. So it's not like I'm saying you have to stop dead and say, we're going to start discovery all over again with you as a customer, and we're going to go back to the drawing board on everything. But on individual work orders, yeah, let's figure out what the heck they want. Because if we're just delivering based on what we think they want, it's swapping out the lettuce and the sandwich. Do they really want a sandwich? That shouldn't be on your shoulders at the end of the day. As a developer working in a shop, I'm assuming that's where you are. That's what it sounds like. Maybe we should just ask that. Where are you working?
I've got my own business.
So you're running your own business. Sorry, I made that assumption then. If you're a developer in a shop and you get handed a work order, do the work order. That's your job. I'm not saying you control all of that. Globally, though, stepping back and saying, hey, before we talk money, like, I can't possibly tell you how much I cost because I don't know what you need. Before we go through the process of figuring out exactly what you need, I need you to tell me what you want. And if you can't tell me what you want, that's a completely different set of services that we have to finish off before we can talk about giving you what you want. So putting the brakes on is very easy the first hour you're talking to someone. Say, whoa. I don't think we're on the same page here. Let's talk. Once you've got the check, I don't know how to fix that. I really don't. I wish I had a magic bullet. Going back and explaining the situation to them as requirements change, the scope creep is death. That's the other talk, actually, what I was giving in Baltimore that I showed that picture of earlier was a discovery. That was everything louder than everything else, how to navigate multiple stakeholders by a thorough discovery process, getting everyone on the same page exactly what's happening. And this is what we're expecting. This is what the project is going to look like. Now let's talk money.
So do you see that most people or agencies bill for that discovery process?
It varies wildly. Actually, who in here charges for a discovery process? This is a conversation again. I'm not.
Who's been charged?
Who charges?
Oh.
Who inside an agency charges for discovery process? We got hands back there. Canopy Studios.
Yeah, so there's only so much scoping and sales stuff you can do up front. Definitely, we always start with goals. That's the first and foremost thing. Is we actually spend the first meeting of the sales is talking about their goals, and then we kind of align on that with the stakeholders that are on the upper level because most often they're not actually the decision maker. And even when we do a bunch of pre-discovery, it's not until we actually uncover through the research. So we do put a big asterisk in our proposal that, based on the findings of our discovery, scope is about to change, or could change. And then we also include often like a slush fund. So we know that there's going to be change. We tell the client there's going to be change. Change is inevitable. It's how we handle it. And then just having a lot of the discovery process can sometimes be 20 hours, sometimes it can be 200 hours, depending on the level of complexity of the project and the stakeholders. And we usually find what's most helpful to kind of validate the goals is user research. By doing a little user research, then if there's certain stakeholders that have a vested interest in the project, so you've got the stakeholder goals, and then if you can kind of find out what the user wants and blend that into a project, you can really hit the nail on the head with your getting out of the organizational requirements and the user requirements. So it's not just some CEO designing this magical thing that's not actually going to work, because then no matter how accurate you are with their scope, when you actually go live and it doesn't work, it's going to be your fault.
Yeah.
Even though it's not really your fault. So we find the best defense is research.
So when you do the discovery stuff, do you do it as a percentage of the project or hourly?
Yeah, usually it depends on the scope, but it's usually about 20% of the project is discovery and strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that it's a framework of helping your clients understand that you're there to kind of help extract those needs and document them and organize them in ways that can be executed on, so it's not just conversation anymore, it's functional requirements that we're gathering into that. And hopefully, ideally, they've done enough homework in advance to have produced an initial set. And if they haven't, sometimes I say, let's just sign on discovery. Let's not actually make a budget for the next part, because you don't know and I don't know. So how am I supposed to, I can say, oh, it's going to be $20,000, but we don't know. And then we also help clients right size, because there's a lot of clients that they might want $100,000 worth of services, but they can only afford 20. So I'm not going to blue sky with them in discovery for 100K of services, knowing they can only afford 20. So it might be something where you can help ask a budget question up front, and that's only one of the qualifying questions. But is to say, okay, if you want to spend 20K on this, then let's do discovery in a way that right sizes to that. So you don't over-engineer your Salesforce integration. It can just be a nice link or a nice box, right? You don't have to over-engineer stuff, because it's very easy for clients to blue sky and not understand the implications of their requests. So sometimes when you're going through discovery, you're kind of, even they say something and you're like, oh, that's very interesting, and it's also really hard. And they go, oh, it is? And yeah, it's really hard. We can go deeper if you want, but I know you wanted to really right size. One of the goals of the budget was to keep it on, one of the goals of the project. And they go, oh, right, the goals, right. Yeah. So the goals is a nice thing that constantly aligns, and it's really helpful for avoiding what I call a swoop and poop. It's a very technical term.
Very technical.
Very technical, but it literally is you've been working with stakeholders, you sign the check, you've gone through everything, and your launch day, and then all of a sudden the dean or the CEO sees everything for the first time and comes in and craps all over your project and leaves and expects you to fix it. So we try to avoid that at all costs, and that discovery stuff and those goals is getting alignment from those upper people, because that's on their level. They totally get the goals for the project. They don't care what content types you build or if you use Drupal or WordPress. Ultimately, they don't care. They want just their goals to be achieved. So if you got alignment on that and you show them the site, and the dean goes, oh, well, why isn't my face on the homepage? And you're like, well, all this user research said that they were actually more interested in this. And they go, oh, and plus your goal is about student recruitment, and oh, okay, well that makes sense why I'm not on the homepage, because they have no context to everything else.
As Allison Manley and Joe Allen Black put it in their Project Management the Musical, a spoonful of research helps the stakeholder calm down. Helps the stakeholder calm down. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. You had a quote actually about Evergreen back there, Andrew?
Yeah.
Your talk.
I did this talk on communication for developers yesterday, and the quote I came up with was, you need to convert blue sky thinking into evergreens thinking. Yeah. That is what business strategy is, or technical strategy, where you're taking like the pie in the sky thinking, like, yeah, we actually want to give you all of that you do want, but your budget is limited, it refills like over a period of time. We need to strategize the high priority things now, future iterations, future refinements down the road.
Cool. I feel I just should say it. I was debating whether I was going to say it. A quote from a friend of mine in the WordPress community, Rachel Cherry. We said in a talk in Seattle, like, we're not up here because we're the subject matter experts and know everything and every answer, but we're the ones that said we'll volunteer in the community and give a talk to have the conversation. So that's why I'm up here. So thank you very much for having this conversation, everyone. Any other points? Any other conversation pieces? There's a lot of knowledge in this room. Collectively, you all know more about this stuff than I could ever know. It just has to be true.
Yeah, so I work at a public state agency, and so we're not getting paid for the projects, but there are constraints, our time, and most of the time fixing something or making something a little bit better. And so we create charters, and we have a charter that defines the scope, the expectations, why we're doing the project, and we put it out there. And that's our kind of overall goals that we can stick to. And that's defined over a couple of meetings, initial meetings, to figure out what all that is. And you have that document you can look back at.
Yeah, absolutely. Scope creep is death. Like, you'll once you let scope creep get out of hand, you're doing 18 projects, not one. You're trying to sell 50 things instead of one thing out of your catalog, and that's a much harder thing to do.
And a lot of times you just have to smile and say, "Gee, that's great idea. That sounds like a future project."
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that diffuses them. You're on their side. You're affirming them. You're not saying,
"That's a great idea."
You don't want that.
Oh,
You're also telling them very clearly, it's not part of what we're doing.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much for that insight. That's another talk I've given on communication. Is people have the knee-jerk reaction to no of they have to defend their idea, no matter how terrible or dumb it is. They have to defend it because it was their idea and you said no. If you say yes, and, that's an improv talk, yes, and we should really have a scoping call around what specifically you want to do with that and how much that's going to cost. Because the easiest way to stop a question mark is with a dollar sign. I forget who said that. That's a talk from like Stanford last year. But it's true. Like, if someone has to pay for their terrible idea, and they're willing to pay you for that terrible idea, take their money and do the terrible idea.
It's a wonderful idea.
It's a wonderful idea. Yeah, your background should be green, and you should have your face on every single homepage, or every single landing page for here on for next time. Other thoughts around this topic? I'd like to hear, honestly, a little bit more from you if you have other thoughts around those other jobs, like what you guys are getting asked to do out there in the world when they think they're hiring a developer, but they hired a developer, but what they really thought they were hiring was a...
Where are all the pictures?
Yeah! That was
it's
content
like
creation,
this, you
yeah.
have any pictures? Where are they? That's part of the contract. That's you.
Yeah.
But
What are you going to do? That was originally what
That's
that...
something I've seen, I think, is like, it is your job as the consultants to explore their needs, the things that they're not asking for, to figure out, like, do you need someone to write content for you? We can go find a consultant for that.
Yep.
Or design or whatever.
Absolutely. I almost had a slide in here that said, what are you going to do? But that's a really... hey, if you're hiring me, what are you going to do for this project, Mr. Customer? And the answer is that I'm going to pay you. But, no, but like, what's your plan around these things?
That's even another point. You know, what is their capacity to pay attention to the project?
Yes.
Because if they're super
part of
busy,
project management.
they're not getting input as you go, it can really lead to like a mess later on when they finally see the output and they kind of disagree with what they're seeing.
All right. Any other thoughts? Again, I would love to have this be an ongoing conversation. To walk out of this room, you all know each other, you've seen each other's faces now. You can say, well, you know, what have I done this in my business? And if you have questions about any of this stuff, there are people with much more knowledge of this than me, apparently. So you can ask them as well. Please do. All right. Well, I don't need to keep you here against your will. So let me jump to a code demo and we'll be done. Because I'm in Drupal. No, I'm kidding. Thank you very much for coming, and I'll be around for a little bit longer. And thank you very much.